And I'd like to welcome everyone to the Montana Sportscast podcast, as I will talk with guests from around the state of Montana about high school sports. We'll try to have on at least 3 shows a week of different people throughout the state of Montana. And if you like these podcasts, please click on the subscribe button below and you will get alerts when we have a new show come up on YouTube. And joining me today is the Executive Director, Brian Michelotti, the Montana High School Association. How are we doing this morning?
Doing great. Just coming back from our big annual meeting, Bob, and ready to get back at it in the office here. So appreciate the opportunity this morning.
Yeah, that's kind of what I wanted to talk about, Brian, is, I heard that, I think from Kip, that you had pretty much record registration numbers for the meeting this year.
Yeah, we did. We did have a big meeting. For anyone that doesn't know, every year we have an annual meeting that occurs in any one of our towns across the state. Typically, we rotate it between 4 or 5 different communities. It's always held in January, and it's a great opportunity for a lot of our schools to come from school administrators from all over the state to discuss a variety of issues. And this year it was in Missoula. We hosted at the Holiday Inn downtown and had great attendance down there. I can't say it's record. We did have a fair amount of registrants, but did have some people that weren't able to make it. But overall, for the event being off center a little bit over in the western part of the state, we do lose some eastern administrators that just because of the travel distance and the weather and some of those things. But overall, wonderful venue and wonderful opportunity for our schools to get together.
Yeah, and it's nice that we can do that, during the COVID years. Uh, Unable to, I think, have one meeting. I think we missed 1 year, wasn't it? Or that we missed
We
because of
did.
COVID, or yeah. But
Yeah, we
it's
did
just,
it. Yeah,
go
I'm
ahead.
sorry. Yeah, we did. We had 1 year where we ended up having a virtual annual meeting during COVID. Every other year, we've been very fortunate to get together and meet in person. As everybody knows, there's a lot of Zoom calls, Zoom meetings these days, and we really do take advantage of the opportunity to see everybody face to face and build some relationships.
Well, Brian, let's talk a little bit about start with just the proposals. I'll throw the first one up on the screen here,
Sure.
and kind of let you talk, highlight that one a little bit, and where you're at there.
You bet. Appreciate it. The first proposal, as you can see there, was essentially to add a private school multiplier to our rules, to our classification and districting. We had long talks on this, and the author of this was Lima High School. We eventually, at the end of the day, this was ruled as out of order, and the reason for that is because what ended up happening is we have in our bylaws, there was a conflict with our bylaws, because really our executive board is really the only entity that can change this overall level of reclassification. Um, doesn't kill the proposal. We had a lot of discussion, and there is a lot of support in our membership right now, for this concept here. So we will form a committee on this. We'll have some individuals across the state that some great administrators across the state that would be on that committee to be able to take a look at this. We will also end up surveying our schools to see what concepts they have on there and address this issue here. So even though it didn't go through as an annual meeting proposal, we will continue to address this because it is a concern in our membership.
All right, we'll go ahead and drop down to proposal number 2 there. And I'm kind of interested in this one. I was a little bit confused with the change. I know there's some changes made to it, I think, during the meeting, but I'll just kind of let you explain that.
Yeah, what ended up happening on this is a proposal to amend our co-ops. Everybody knows, co-ops are a big deal across the state of Montana, and we have quite a few co-ops. This one here, as you can see written, it really had a team aspect to it and an individual sport aspect to it. The team aspect didn't change much from that standpoint, the first part of it. And then the individual essentially was written to say that if, you can co-op during the regular season, but whenever the postseason comes around in individual sports, which are cross country, wrestling, swimming, golf, tennis, and track, and also speech and debate. And when the postseason comes around for that, they would actually split up the co-ops and they'd compete on their own. There wasn't a lot of support for that. This proposal was written by Sunburst High School, and it was amended on the floor at our annual meeting to get, as you can see on the screen there, to get rid of number 1 and number 2. And then eventually what this did is it said if the combined enrollments of the schools involved in a co-op exceeds the minimum number in the higher classification, then at that point in time they'd be moved to that higher classification as well. So that's that proposal. This will put some more restraints on individual co-ops, but co-ops can every one of those co-ops will be always comes into our office first. So they will have the opportunity in our office to realize that they may be over an enrollment number, and that would push them into a higher classification. And that those individual schools will then have the choice on whether they decide to continue with the co-op, or whether or not they want to appeal that to our executive board. But really, that's the gist of that is that if a co-op's bigger than the overall, say for instance, our maximum number for Class C schools is 100. So we may have a co-op in track or cross country where there's 2 schools where their combined enrollment is, say, 125. Then at that point in time, they could either by this thing opt to go up and play Class B or run in Class B in cross country in this case, or they would just go ahead and continue to compete on their own. So that's really when 2 schools come together in a combined co-op, it kind of caps the number at what your classification maximum number is. So that makes sense.
So one question: so you got a track team in a co-op, they can do regular season track meets together, but when they get to postseason, then they have to separate.
Actually, that part was stricken out of the rule. Okay. One of probably the most major thing that came out of this rule right here was that no longer exists, but the other portion of things, proceeded forward, and that's where really what changed is to move to the next classification. So for that individual co-op, and our membership on a very close vote voted that in, and that would go into place, and we would start implementing that with new co-ops beginning in the 2023-24 school year. July 1st of this year is when that'll go into effect.
Okay, I was going to ask you when these proposals go into effect, and of course we have number 3 there to have a committee to study lacrosse. We might as well do number 4 as well while you're talking.
Sure.
That would be esports.
Yeah, exactly. There was good discussion on both of these proposals right here. This first proposal that you have up on your screen there is a proposal from Missoula Hellgate High School. The proposal is to add boys and girls lacrosse across the state of Montana. The way our membership works on this is our bylaws say to add a new activity. What we do is it comes in front of our annual meeting. The membership votes to form a committee to study the addition of boys and girls lacrosse, for instance. And then at the next annual meeting next year, if this were to pass, we would have come back and actually voted on whether lacrosse goes into place. But in this particular case, our membership, with some current concerns on school budgeting and a variety of other factors, decided that they did not want to do this study. So we will not be looking at adding boys and girls lacrosse, at least for now. The second proposal, esports is really growing across the country. And there's a fair amount of state associations that oversee esports, which, from a gaming perspective, it, uh, really focuses towards participation of some of those some other individuals in our schools that really aren't participating in the sports, but maybe be able to, be involved in esports. This was brought in front of our membership. Our membership, had great discussion on this proposal, but at the end of the day, they decided that a committee should not be formed either. So both of those, both the lacrosse and the esports, our membership denied both of those proposals. So we won't be doing that and be focusing on other efforts out there, Bob.
Okay, talk a little bit about flag football. We had flag football last year. Did that go through this process, Brian, of being a study committee, or is that kind of a unique situation with Atlanta Falcons coming in there, or
It
kind of
is.
explain that?
It is, and we're working through that process right now. We had a couple questions from a few of our member schools on the flag football process, and our membership will see an official option to sanction flag football. One of the things that happened with flag football is that some of the discussion that happened on that happened right when we were adding girls wrestling, when we were dabbing in powerlifting, which was a possibility, and also the addition of baseball. So the Atlanta Falcons, who have a huge interest in growing flag football across the country, came into our schools. We labeled it as a sponsored activity, is what we did, not a sanctioned activity, but a sponsored one. And so it is not an official sanctioned MHSA sport. We will take a look at proceeding forward with seeing if there's more interest in adding that as an official sanctioned sport across the state of Montana, if there's more interest this particular year.
So it would take a committee to study that, and then for a year, and then the schools would vote on it the
There's
following year.
the
How would
interesting
that
part
work?
about that. It hasn't followed the traditional path on that. So we're in discussion with our board and how to proceed forward with that. So I think one of the ideas is we've had a study where Glacier, Flathead, and Butte have played and had some success with the sponsorship of the Atlanta Falcons. So, we've tested it. We see what the rules are. We understand how games run. We understand what season it goes into, maybe some game limitations. So we probably just move forward with that to see if truly our membership wants to move forward with that as a sanctioned sport or not. So that will be the procedure that, I would recommend to our board. And ultimately, our board makes the final decision on that. But that would be my recommendation to them.
How about the caucus meetings, Brian? Did you get anything from any of the caucus meetings that stood out to you?
We had, really about 8 to 10 different topics that we brought up with them. We're really, really want every one of them. A lot of them were just focused towards how do we continue to grow participation across our state, Bob. We had issues on, do we adjust our practice, mandatory practice times in all sports from the 10-day practice to the 8-day practice, days of mandated required practices at the beginning of those seasons. Some of that was pointed towards, can we start later? Can we not have an overlap in the winter and the fall and winter season? How is our overlap on the spring season going to be affected that as basketball tournaments wrap up? We talked about issues on some issues on the state volleyball tournaments and how that, maybe potentially adjusting that. We had about 3 or 4 other different topics that we talked about. But overall, our caucuses, what happens during those is each one of our individual classification not only talks about MHSA issues, but to get together and talk about a lot of their concerns as well. And those are great opportunities to really, get face to face and build relationships and also solve some business of the classifications as well.
All right. Gonna kind of let you wrap up here, Brian. If you got any final thoughts about the meeting that you want to extend to people, why have at it.
Well, as I mentioned at the beginning, and shared at our meeting, we have such a wonderful group of administrators in our membership across the state, and we have this opportunity that whenever anybody shows up at the meeting, they are so happy with the results because we have 8-player football meetings, we have 6-player football meetings, we have you know Eastern BC softball, we have Class BC wrestling, we have Class BC tennis meetings. We have all of our classes are meeting all day on Sunday to really go through a lot of their business and really set themselves up for the remaining half of this school year here. And it's just a wonderful opportunity. We can't, there's a lot of miles driven to get to the meetings and a lot of time spent away from families to share their great ideas. And it's just really a wonderful opportunity for everybody in our membership to get together, say hello, and get ready for the remainder portion of the school year and deal with some MHSA business along the way. But we appreciate you being there. Appreciate our schools coming and look forward to many, many years. It's become, for a while there was always a discussion on whether we continue, but without it coming out of COVID and the great opportunities for our meeting, along with all of their meetings, it's becoming more and more valuable every year.
All right. Well, thanks for coming on this morning, Brian. I appreciate it, and very informative, I think, and appreciate your time.
Appreciate all you do for us, Bob, and let's have a great getting ready for basketball, wrestling, basketball, and swimming. Actually, speech and drama as well coming up in a few weeks here. So excited for the winter championships and the rest of the school year. So thank you.
And I'd like to thank our guests that come on the show and talk about Montana high school sports. Without them, this show would not be possible. And once again, if you like this podcast, please click on the subscribe button below to get alerts when we have up a new podcast.